So I'm just about to start processing the garlic, and I've had it in the polytunnel on this bench because the weather's not really been that sunny and hot, but it's getting a little bit too warm in here now. So you see, it's 98 Fahrenheit, which is too warm for drying garlic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the roots and cut off the stems, and I'm going to move it into my garage and get a fan on it. Anyway, I'll show you basically what to look for, how I'm doing it step by step, and eventually where I'm going to store it. So we really only grow softneck garlic now, so there's no flower stalk, and these instructions really only apply to softneck garlic. If you want hardneck garlic, then search on the web, because I only really provide advice relating to things that I actually grow and successfully store. So we want to cut these roots off, and we don't want to damage the base, so it doesn't really matter if we leave just a little bit of root here. And we want to take the stems off about here. So here's some that I've done, and although this looks really dry, and is dry, you can see the stems are still wet. And that's why we need to do what we're doing. That's why we need to trim these off here and get a fan blowing over here in order to get them nice and dry. Now I've got a few rejects. I don't mind rejects at all. These rejects are going to be used for growing green garlic, and in my book all about growing alliums year round, I've got a section about green garlic, and that goes into, you know, why to grow it, what density to plant it, and all of that sort of thing. Green garlic is just ordinary garlic. It's just planted at a higher density and harvested when it's still green, when all these stems are lovely to eat, as well as the bulbs. Now with green garlic, you normally harvest it as a monobulb before the bulb has split into cloves, but the bulb is still fine. It's still a garlic bulb. It's got all the same health benefits and everything. Just no cloves in it. Or actually, when you split it open, you will see that cloves are starting to form. If all your garlic, by the way, comes out like this, it means it wasn't cold enough over winter. And so if you're in that sort of climate, you can put it in the fridge for a couple of months and then plant it out. When you're harvesting your garlic, you've basically got two options. You can just harvest it like that, and sort of all this loose outer leaves are left on until they dry, and you do eventually want to get them nice and clean so they look like this. Or you can trim off all that outer leaf, just the loose ones. You want lots of leaf still. This is all leaf basically, so all these leaves here go all the way down the stem and wrap around the cloves. So what you've got here is effectively leaf, and you want plenty of leaf nice and intact, because that helps the garlic store really well. So I generally like to do this, get mine nice and clean at harvest time. It just saves an extra step, but it's really no problem to do it like this either. All these dry leaves just come off just like that, so it doesn't really matter either way. So there we go, that's all processed nicely now. And yeah, so just the key points, you really want to get these nice and dry, and so the best way is to keep them out of direct sunlight and where there's air flowing over the top of this. So you could, I'm going to put them in the garage with a fan, but I might also bring them outside, leave them in the shade on a nice windy day. You want the roots trimmed off. Actually, that's probably slightly too much root, but it'll probably be fine. Maybe that's a little bit better, you know, so just about 5 millimeters of root. What you don't want to do is damage this leaf around the skin, around the cloves. And these are all good size for storing. Not giant, that's fine. Good size. These are my rejects. I did actually find I had a few hard necks, so that's a hard neck, I think. Maybe not. Maybe that one. But these are all just going to be used now for green garlic. Now when it comes to picking the bulbs for next year, so I'm just going to pick, you know, these nice big ones. And that I think is pretty much it. We've got about another half as much as that again to process, but for now my box is full and I'll get the rest of it done when I get home, because that's where it is. So there's hopefully, once I've taken the ones out of here that I'm going to use for next year, about 2 bulbs a week, which is about what we need. We start switching over to green garlic in April, so this stock, no, maybe there's more than that, this stock has got to last us about 8 months, so maybe we've got 3 bulbs a week, which would be great. So I'm processing my early onions, and they're drying in this little greenhouse. The doors are open, the roof's vented, and it's got this scaffold netting on it just to keep it a little bit cooler. And with onions, you leave the leaves on. That's quite important because there's a chemical in the leaves that gets absorbed into the bulb, which suppresses sprouting. So these are all nice and firm. These are tough ball. These are the best, I think, to grow from seed. You actually sow the seed about now, so it's about the middle of July, and then I do another batch at the beginning of August, and I plant those out in about October time. All of these were multi-sown, so they're all medium-sized onions, about 3 seeds to a module, and you want them rustling dry. So I think I can safely say these are rustling dry now. So I'm going to take these and get them processed. So there we go, that's the overwintered ones. They're, just cut them off there, quite dry now, those. Dry better than garlic at the necks. Again, cut the roots off. I don't really fuss too much with these because being overwintered ones, we're only going to use these from, well, when we first start harvesting them. It's about, you know, late May through to, you know, maybe late August, something like that. And then we'll have our main crops. And to be honest, the main crops are looking pretty good at the moment. Good sizes. Very few of the ones that were sown from seed have gone to seed. Quite a lot of the trial ones that were grown from sets have gone to seed. There's quite a marked difference between the two. But these are not ready for harvest yet. You've got to wait for them to start flopping over. And you might see some of these have got really quite thick necks, and that's not great for storage. You want a nice thin neck, really, like that one. So that one's probably not going to go for storage. So when you're sorting those, be sure to select the thin necked ones for your storage crop, and the rest of them eat, you know, within a few months. Anyway, I'll do another video all about main crop onions. Popped a little fan on in our storage shed, which I'm now going to switch off because it's noisy. And so there's the garlic. Just popped it on top of the dehydrator for now because we've got nothing to dehydrate. We've still got beetroot down here, and there's the onions. So the onions are okay actually in here for the next couple of months, so they'll be fine. I don't have to worry too much about them. The main crop onions are going to go down here and also in one of these crates, and I am going to set a fan up in here that comes on a few hours a day all the way through winter, just to keep the ventilation levels higher than they are in here naturally. So when it comes to garlic storage, the key thing is temperature and ventilation. Temperature I think is more important than ventilation, although you do want it reasonably well vented. No plastic bags or anything like that. This shed here is too cold for them, so they will probably get like a little bit of mildew on them, and they'll also start to sprout because too cold leads to sprouting. So if you put them in the fridge, for example, they would start to sprout. So they need to be higher temperature than that, but normal room temperature is too warm for them. So this shed is too cold, the house normally is too warm. So what to do? Most of them, the ones that we're using in our storage cupboard, and we basically just put them up there in that wicker basket, and it's a bit cooler in here, so it's probably about 65, something like that, in this storage cupboard, which is kind of on the borderline. And we just put the rest of them in an unheated bedroom, which is more like 60. So again, maybe that's slightly too warm, but generally speaking, we don't have a problem. It's got this batch now to process, and it'll just go in the same sort of box. And again, it's nice and dry, even though these leaves have been getting a bit wet in the rain. This little shelter has kept them reasonably dry.